Are video games a lesser evil? Not really. Compared to drugs, compared to social media, compared to weed, compared to porn, I don't think that they're that much of a lesser evil, because they're all on the same spectrum of cope. Of course, there are like physical aspects compared to the mental aspects. Like with weed, your eyes become red, you become more like addicted, you feel like cravings. With porn, I personally experienced a hellhole with porn. I felt as though like the stuff I was seeing was I don't know. Bro, the only thing that mattered to me back then was that it felt good, that I could get off to it. Now with video games, are they a lesser evil than that? No, not really. With all of these sorts of addictions, they start off with it feeling good. Like, you can take weed recreationally, like once in a while, and you don't really get hooked onto it. Same thing with porn. Like, even though, yeah, you might not get all the intimacy in the world, doing it once in a while doesn't really affect like much. But it all comes to an end when the purpose of what you are doing changes. All the actions that you take in life, all the purpose of all those actions will eventually shift into other purposes. I know that a friend of mine like is like seriously addicted to games. Like like I hear the stories coming from my friend who is like still in like the friend group about how he just like plays games and just like does only that, you know. He like finishes his homework, does whatever, and then like goes on his merry way onto his day. But what I realize now is that the things that my friend has been telling me about this one Jeffrey friend that I used to talk to, but now I don't. His condition got worse. He no longer has, like, he no longer feels like fun playing those games. I think he's much more cynical. Like, I interact with him in person, like during school hours, and he's like a bit more cynical as a person. He's like telling me about all these things, like, this so-and-so did this to me and it annoyed me, and I'm like, it doesn't really sound that bad. You just have a skill issue. But yeah. This man's mental became much more apparent when my friend was talking about him today, actually. We were walking home from the gym after like eating a bunch of stuff, and my friend, after like all of the friends went to their houses, it was just me and my friend that like talks still in the friend group with like the Jeffrey friend, and he's telling me like how what he feels in when he's like with that Jeffrey friend. And when he feels something like that, I know that it's gonna be a story. Because usually he's like, even though he's like aggressive, he's not as like masculine. Something's gonna be up, because he knows like what is like inconvenient and what is not, and what is just like whatever, what is like something that you don't really need to think about during the day. You don't have to like obsess over it and hate on it. He was telling me about how like he liked how the Jeffrey friend liked this girl that like he plays games with, right? But this girl talks to another guy, and the Jeffrey friend has been talking to this girl for like a while now, and man's caught feelings for her. But then man's just felt jealous of this guy that the girl that he likes was talking to, and he felt as if he were like cheated on, he felt jealous. And even though the Jeffrey friend noticed it, he felt jealous, but he felt weird that he was jealous, because usually he doesn't really talk to girls. The last time he talked with a girl was it was like a long distance relationship, but he like decided to end that, because like long range relationships, long distance relationships don't tend to work out. My man's just felt jealous, and yeah, this effect of like jealousy keeps like happening, and like he has a habit of like trying to downplay his emotions, the negative emotions that he puts out, and tries to justify them. But those negative emotions don't necessarily like they're not necessarily productive. Like they're not productive. Video games have affected this man so much that he tries to justify that video games are just something that's preferable. He doesn't need to play them, but he just prefers to play them. I think that was true when it was before. But now I think it's a way of coping. It's a way of escapism. It's a way of distraction. Video games, even though they're not like weed or social media or porn, how they get you is that they take a large amount of your time, especially those grindy games, My man's played Destiny and Genshin and Overwatch, and like I see this man just deteriorating. Like, even though he looks good on the outside, his mental is just wow, he has gone to the point where he has to justify playing video games. he is being distracted away from why he is this kind of person. I remember he always tells me about like how he just doesn't understand himself as a person. And you know, I could never like help him out, but I understand now that video games are a distraction, and what he has to do is cut off video games for a little bit. Like, have a section of the day where it is allocated to just not doing anything, to just going away from the computer and just like doing something productive. Hell, even just like sitting on the couch and just like staring into the abyss, you know? That's more productive than video games, because that allows your mind to think. And soon, when you get the cogs turning, you mustn't let them stop, because once you let them stop, there's gonna be a ghostly presence that feels as if you're supposed to think. In order for you to quit video games, it's to realize that video games aren't a productive way to spend your time. They aren't productive, and they are a distraction. They distract you from whatever purpose that is like deep down into your mind. Because soon enough, you'll realize that you've spent way too much time. Way too much time on these games. These things that are temporary, that are like, that only occupy like 2 gigs of RAM on your computer. And yet you focus so much on trying to get that sort of feeling. Video games become this sort of like chase. You kind of chase video games rather than playing the game. The game plays you, and you become a zombie to it. You become mindless, and you just like stop. You stop your processes, your thinking processes, and go on autopilot. You don't really think when you're playing video games, but however, you still do like think. You still are using your hands, you still are using it, like all of that hand-eye coordination, whatever. Cursor-eye coordination for them. It becomes a problem. Video games are not a lesser evil, as they are still able to control you. In order for you to get out of video games is to realize that they're a distraction towards your purpose. And if you realized now that your purpose is sort of important, more important than the world, and congratulations, you've escaped the matrix. Click on this video to learn more. Stay safe, brother.